My opinion is that David Cameron is not being transparent at all, and that his idea that his father's offshore fund is a family matter is hypocritical and a joke. Furthermore, he is not doing enough, or maybe even doing nothing to combat tax avoidance in British overseas territories, when the money could be used for the NHS or other vital services, because many of his close mates have money in those British overseas territories. In this video, I will justify my opinion by examining a statement from Downing Street on Monday the 4th of April, and then a video of Cameron speaking about his father's fund and taxes on Tuesday the 5th of April. Let's get into it. So what did number 10 say about Mr. Cameron's tax affairs just after the Panama Papers had been leaked? Well, as you can see, a spokesman for Mr. Cameron said that the offshore fund was a private matter. Okay, that's that then. No need for further investigation. Done and dusted. Oh wait, it's not. Listen, I do think people asking about your salary and money in general is an invasion of privacy. Like it's my money. You don't need to know how much I earn and how much tax I pay. But you can't deny that this is utterly ridiculous. It's only logical. If you can look at my salaries and tax returns, I deserve to look at yours. This is not a one-way system here. If the public wants to know if Mr. Cameron still has money, or has received money from his father's offshore fund, we deserve this information. No matter how powerful you are, you can't claim that money and taxes are private matters if you yourself get information about any normal person's wages. If the state had no control over my private affairs, then I wouldn't care about the state's private affairs. This is where a balance has to be made. A liberal and democratic country, which the UK prides itself on being, must strike an equal balance between state supervision of normal people and transparency of the state itself. This doesn't just apply to money. What the release of the Panama Papers has done is show that there is no balance at the moment. Instead, Mr. Cameron believes that he can get away with having everyone else's personal information, but does not believe he should give the public his information when it's suggested he could be doing something bad. We, as a country, should not stand for this. On Tuesday, the PM visited Birmingham and was taking questions from journalists. The video I'm about to react to was his answer to the question of, can you clarify for the record that you and your family have not derived any benefit in the past, and will not in the future, from the offshore Blairmore Holdings Fund, his dad's offshore fund, mentioned in the Panama Papers. Let's play the video.
Sure, look, what we need, the investigation we need, first of all, is for HMRC, our tax authority, to use all the information that is coming out of Panama.
Such as the information about your father's dirty dealings, Dave? Did you forget in about 3 seconds of being reminded that he was in there? To
make sure that everything's done, to make sure that companies and individuals are paying their taxes properly.
Companies, okay, and individuals, like you, for example. Just answer the question.
In many ways, what's coming out of Panama is actually what we're introducing in our own country, which is a register of beneficial ownership, so everyone can see who owns what company.
Yay! So we get to see just how many greedy bastards there are, avoiding the taxes in our country by claiming that their businesses are based in the Cayman Islands, which, by the way, there's clearly only one reason for doing. Sounds great to me, Dave.
As for the two things I'm responsible for are my own financial affairs and for the tax system of the United Kingdom. In terms of my own financial affairs, I own no shares. I have a salary as Prime Minister, and I have some savings, which I get some interest from.
I love his use of the word some as if it just means anything, like saying he's got some of this and some of that. Like it will make all of his problems just disappear. Just tell us the truth, Dave. How many savings have you got? How much interest do you get? And by the way, we're now 30 seconds into this answer, and he hasn't even begun to answer the actual question.
And I have a house, which we used to live in, which we now let out while we're living in Downing Street. And that's all I have. I have no shares, no offshore trusts, no offshore funds, nothing like that.
Right. Now, this is all very well, and I pretty much believe everything he said. I don't think he'd lie about this. But he hasn't actually answered the question posed to him. The question was if he has gained or will gain from his father's old fund, Blairmore Holdings. He's mentioned shares, his salary, his houses, and the fact he has no offshore funds or trusts, and that's all very well, but again he has still not answered the question. On Monday, a spokesperson for Cameron said it was a private matter, and on Tuesday, Cameron seemed to have opened up a little, talking about everything to do with his income and assets. Everything except for his father's fund. This just seems a bit suspicious. I think, therefore, saying all of this stuff about his personal resources is actually just not a sign of him being transparent, because he hasn't said anything about the stuff that we as a public don't know, his father's offshore fund.
And so that, I think, is a very clear description. No government, no Prime Minister has done more to make sure we crack down on tax evasion, on aggressive tax avoidance, on aggressive tax planning, both here in the UK and internationally.
Oh really, Mr Cameron? Is that why UK tax fraud still costs government £16 billion a year? Is that why British overseas territories have more offshore companies and funds on them than any other territories in the world? I do not doubt that the government has made some progress on clamping down on tax evasion, but the evidence shows that this is on small-scale examples of tax evasion, such as on income tax, VAT and tobacco duty. Of course, it does make sense after all. Why clamp down on rich people and large corporations putting money in overseas territories in order to avoid paying huge amounts of tax, when, as revealed in the Panama Papers, so many Tory MPs and Tory donors use these systems? You see, in David Cameron's brain, it's far less effective to tax these rich people that you could get a lot of money off, and far more effective to tax poor people on things like VAT, on a packet of bloody crisps or something like that. In December, HMRC said additional funding and new measures contained in the summer budget and autumn statement are allowing HMRC to crack down further on the hidden economy, get tougher on offshore evasion, and increase the number of prosecutions of wealthy tax evaders. There is no evidence to suggest whatsoever that the government has got tougher on offshore evasion. There is only evidence to suggest that they have done nothing. This evidence is called the Panama Papers.
So we have recovered billions of pounds in our country by changing tax regulations and rules in budget after budget, billions of pounds. But we've also led the world in making sure we have, which we'll have in June, an open register of beneficial ownership so everyone can see who owns what in Britain. We haven't just done that here in the UK, we've also pioneered that abroad. We've said, for instance, to the overseas territories and crown dependencies that they have to have the automatic exchange of tax information, they have to have a single standard for reporting company taxation, and they too need to do registers of beneficial ownership. And we made huge progress on that with the overseas territories, with the crown dependencies.
Then why do companies still base themselves there in order not to pay tax? You'd think that with all these fantastic steps, the corporations would consider it too risky to base themselves there to avoid tax.
And other countries as well. I started this at the G8 summit in Northern Ireland some years ago, and we've now got country after country sharing tax information, committing to beneficial ownership registers, which we never had before. Is there more to do? Absolutely. Am I committed to doing it? Absolutely. And the anti-corruption summit that we're holding in London on May the 12th will yet another sort of mark along the way of making sure we deliver on this absolutely vital agenda. We have low taxes here in Britain.
No. No, we don't. I'm not necessarily complaining about that, but no, we don't.
But low taxes that people must pay.
And that's it. That was the video. Overall, absolutely not good for Cameron. I think I've justified my opinion fairly well. I believe that he will find that a lack of transparency to the British people will turn out worse for him than admitting what he has done wrong. He's letting rich people get away with not contributing to the economy. And now there are rumours that he is one of those people himself. In the wider picture, the Panama Papers just confirm what I personally have known all along, that it's one rule for the rich and one rule for the rest, and that governments like the UK's and Iceland's and Russia's help to keep this as secret as possible.